Welcome back to Port Elizabeth, the beautiful city. This is part 27 as we resume our exploration of the Port Elizabeth beachfront, which I did in October 2014. So not long before that, they had established this little monument to the people of Southend, which was a mixed race area on the southern banks of the Barkens River, which survived probably about 100 years until it was essentially flattened under the Apartheid Era Group Areas Act. You'll see a mosque in the distance there. I think we get to visit it a little later. And then this is a monument that was installed next to the Southend Museum, which is behind one as viewed from this position. So this is how close Southend was to the harbour. Very few buildings from the early Southend remain, and we'll see a few of them as we go along. So this is just this so anyone who lived in Southend all these things will evoke memories, St. Mary's Pier, Stromberg Stream. Behind it actually is the fire station, I think, Southend Fire Station. That's a view across towards the harbour. And then there's around this precinct is this wall through which I've taken this picture of the Rudolph Street Mosque, which they prevented from being flattened. So the Mosque of Righteousness, as it was also known, was completed in 1894. And this road that passes it isn't called Rudolph Street anymore. That got lost as they revamped the whole of Southend and reconfigured the streets and everything. So there's a closer up view. And that's looking back at the Southend Museum, which is the former Seamen's Institute. So the seamen, that was a real institution of the harbour. I think you get them in just about every city in the world, harbour city in the world. So great architecture here, which thankfully has been retained and not lost. And I'm always interested in municipal buildings like this. This is probably a little electricity substation, 1915. Probably older than the Seamen's Institute. Let's just see. So that would have been possibly a part of a building that was knocked down that they retained and used as a sort of marker. Yeah, it says here it was taken from the rubble left in the Barkens Valley part of the suburb near the Hindu temple. The temple still exists, but they built a hugely unsuitable building right next door to it, right in the valley, which is, to me, a sacrilege, but anyway. So this is part on the back here is a new addition. It includes a coffee shop. This was the old Seamen's Institute on the left. I think we get in, yeah. So I think I'll show later on how the Seamen's Institute looked originally. Let's see if they give a date for when it was opened. So this Art Deco section is more recent. And that actually says the Siemens Institute. South End Museum on the left. So it's quite a nice combination of Art Deco and this kind of earlier thing. But the problem was that, as with the old post office, they did nasty things with the upper part of this building. Here we go, yeah. So look at that. Absolutely no decoration above the gutters, essentially. Here, I'm not sure when it was built, but probably around the turn of the century. Beautiful gables, you know, and a pitched roof. And all that lost through just, you know, it would have been possible to retain it. That's the sadness. And this is the view now from that part of the beach road out towards the harbour. And it's, you know, it's crying out for really great development. In fact, if you look at those houses down in Girdlestone Street, one of them, until as recently as 2000 or so, this double story here was a pub, an active, successful pub called the Anchor. Not that I went to it, because I went to the Anchor when it was actually based in Westbourne Road, I think it was. But so that was a functioning pub. I don't know if these other houses, this is now survivors of Southend. Apparently these were owned by the railways, and for that reason they weren't flattened when the rest of Southend was. But this gives you a hint of how Southend looked. And of course, the harbour has let these go to rack and ruin, just like the harbour board building. And again, this is a place you don't want to really be walking around by yourself. That's a view up from that point through ruins, really, of probably other buildings, or towards the freeway. The Settlers Freeway joins Beach Road at this point. And yeah, we walk past these essentially heritage buildings that, I mean, just need to be retained, upgraded, looked after. So looking back up towards the Southend Museum, and I'm not sure which hotel that is on the left there. And looking back down towards the back of these things. Now this tree here is a survivor of the old Southend. It's part of their folklore and legend. So there were houses all around this tree. This was a residential area right around here, and it was flattened also to make way for the freeway. Yeah, I wasn't in PE at the time, so I don't really know all the ins and outs. But that's a famous tree, that Southend fig tree, wild fig. Southenders would know about it. And there's a little stretch of Southend property. And there's another mosque that they couldn't pull down, and in behind it is the Campanile. So Pier Street Mosque. And I've actually found a map, even on Google Maps actually, which has the original street layout of Southend overlaid on the present map. It's quite interesting. All this was residential. And here is a church. So a couple of churches also survived. And we go there shortly, I think. So up in, I walked up into this, what is now called Southend, but it's a totally new suburb, really, of townhouses essentially. And there's that church. And that's probably the remnants of some building that was knocked down. In fact, these are steps. So ceramic or brick steps. So this was a South End church, quite a historic one in its own right too. Pardon the noise outside, but we've got our grass cutting people, not here but next door somewhere. You can see a lot of this is just very drab. This thing just stands like a monument. I don't think there's anything on that place where a plaque used to be. Okay, so here's a historic picture from the 1960s. And this same church, you can see these elongated windows here. Just have a look at that. Exactly the same. So there you can see it was surrounded by houses, businesses. South End was not just a residential area, it also had businesses, various businesses, factories, shoe factories, etc. And in fact, when I first saw a photograph taken from Barkin Street of South End's lower part near the harbour, I couldn't believe there was an entire section of a city that existed there, which was removed. Anyway, I think we're going to find out what's became of this thing. Do I write about it somewhere? Yeah, no, I don't. So anyway, this says Apostolic Church, formerly DRC, Dutch Reformed, South End. Can't read the rest. Anyway. And then I drove a bit up Warmer Boulevard, which was the old Rudolph Street, to Upper South End. And this is where the older buildings in Warmer, kind of, I think, the flattening of South End ended probably around about here. So South End would be to the right. And so these are probably similar to what some of the South End houses looked like. So on the right, you've got townhouse complexes, which is the old South End. And in the distance here is Fort Frederick. So you get a sense of this valley here, the Balkans Valley. And this is called Wyndham Road, Wyndham Street. Yeah, so here is a view down across the valley towards the harbour, Fort Frederick. And a quarry, which I think they used for a lot of the early building in Port Elizabeth. So the stone buildings might well have got their stone from that place. And there we mentioned it, Hindu temple earlier, and that is it, still standing there. Unfortunately, right here, they built a monstrous, about 5-story building, totally out of character with this place. So I like these streetscapes. And then this is probably the tiniest petrol station in PE. Yeah, got a nice roof. I was just looking out for buildings that had some apparent historic significance. So we're now in Upper Valley Road, and this row of houses, also a remnant of South End. And that's the quarry across the road. And look at that. Unfortunately, these have also now no longer residential. They've been converted into a business, and they've lost quite a lot of their character. But anyway, at least they've been retained. I don't know if this building survived. And coming up to the Hindu temple, which I later visited, I went inside there and took quite a lot of pictures. But yeah, so much character, you know. Unfortunately, with the sun to the northwest, often the pictures are a bit hazy. I just poked the camera in to get a look, but later we will do a full exploration of this interesting place. These statues or whatever. I do like the hills in the background. That's Brickmaker's Cliff, I think. Palm trees add just that touch. Yeah, Indian religions seem to revolve around animals. Sorry about the light, but we're getting clouds scudding in front and behind, no, just in front of the sun. Yeah, that row again, beautiful. And here's Google Earth's view of it. So that row there, and the temple down there. Sorry. And here it actually shows work on this new building that they put up right so close to the temple. It's very unfortunate. So I then went up Brickmaker's Cliff. Don't know if I'll have time. Interesting modern building here going up next to all these historic buildings. Not sure if it's a good idea. Look at this, trees in bloom. Jacaranda? Yeah. So this actually just shows you where South End was. Here's the Barkans. Sorry, no, I'm in the wrong spot here altogether. This is the Shark River. So Shark Rock Pier is here, I think. Anyway. Let's just have a quick look at Harris Street before we go. So this is a late 19th century cottage at number 1 Harris Street, which is quite close. It's off Brickmaker's Cliff, and it's close to where I stayed in a block of flats. And Gordon Terrace and Carla Street are up here. So this is a great old house. And yeah, these cottages, quite historic in their own right. But so overgrown, eh? Definitely in need of a tree felling company. And that's a block of flats, Tema Court, where I lived up there probably for about 4 years in the late 80s. And this is a sketch I did of one of these houses. And I did one of those on the ridge above. Yeah, so let's end it with a drawing. Cheers for now.